I don't know no strip, I don't know no can't compare. And that nigga in that video, he can't be me. Like seriously.
Largely due to some of the biggest and most influential drill rappers ever, like Chief Keef, Lil Durk, King Von, Rondo No. 9, and others, commonly mentioning him in their songs, often rapping about this pocket-sized savage who stood at only 5'2", carrying guns and not being afraid to use them, essentially being one of their most admired shooters. T-Roy, real name James Johnson, got his nickname from his second name, Troy, which is appropriately derived from the Old Irish word meaning foot soldier, someone who's really in the field during wartime. T-Roy was born and raised in the infamous Parkway Gardens apartment complex, better known nowadays as O-Block. O-Block's located on the south side of Chicago, on the border of Woodlawn, more specifically West Woodlawn and Washington Park neighborhoods. But O-Block is not only an apartment complex with almost 700 units, but it's also the name of an alleged gang that resides there. A gang most recently made famous by 6 members who were convicted of the murder of rapper FBG Duck, who allegedly belonged to the rival gang STL on nearby St. Lawrence and 63rd. T-Roy himself was an alleged member of the O-Block set, a street gang who pledge allegiance to the Historical's Black Disciples gang, founded by legendary Chicago gangster David Barksdale. T-Roy himself had 2 brothers, who were known on the streets as HK and Slutty. Both of those brothers have since tragically passed away, but their mother would also raise 3 other cousins as her own, Zalmunna, Eli, and Maria, with the first of these, Zalmunna, now also dead, taking his own life after being identified as a shooter in the murder of FBG Duck too. But the story of T-Roy's siblings could very well be its own video. But for T-Roy, growing up on the south side of Chicago,
we have a 10-1, 50 East Oak, shots fired, shots fired. EMS 11 is taking male black northwestern. 32 is going to go to the hospital, serious condition. We have a total of 4 shooters. In addition to that, I'm being told one of them did have a weapon. An officer needs to be in those ambulances, and they need to be searched.
This was an individual who fancies himself as a rapper, but is also a member of a gang.
Identified as 26-year-old Carlton Weekly, but more commonly known by the name FBG Duck. The rapper was gunned down on Oak Street Tuesday, just west of Michigan Avenue, by 4 men who police say jumped out of 2 separate vehicles and started shooting.
5 alleged Chicago street gang members now facing federal charges in connection with the shooting death of a local rapper downtown.
August 4th, 2020. The Gold Coast, one of the most expensive neighborhoods in the entire city of Chicago. Michigan Avenue shops, luxury apartments, the kind of neighborhood where people pay $5,000 a month to feel safe. And on that afternoon, a man named Carlton Weekly, known to the world as FBG Duck, walked out of a store on the 900 block of North Michigan Avenue. He was 26 years old. He had made it. Not just survived, made it. In the way that every kid from the South Side dreams about. Music, money, a name that people knew, a following that grew by the millions. He was in the Gold Coast, not 63rd Street, not Parkway Gardens, not the blocks where the war had been waged for the better part of a decade. The Gold Coast, and it wasn't enough. I want you to sit with that for a second, because that right there, that distance between where he came from and where he was standing, that is not just a geography lesson. That is the whole story, the whole lesson, the whole reason we're here today.
On the 4th of August 2020, Chicago rapper FBG Duck was gunned down in broad daylight. Duck was left on the ground dying next to a jammed pistol, with dozens of bullets in his body bleeding out for over 20 minutes. But this was no ordinary gangland hit, because that spot where Duck would lay fighting for his life was outside of a Dolce & Gabbana store in Chicago's Gold Coast, a luxury shopping district in the north of Chicago, miles away from the blocks on the city's south side, where gang warfare is rampant and the streets are considered some of the most dangerous in America. The assassination of FBG Duck in this manner conjures up images of Chicago gang warfare in the 20s, when the likes of Al Capone were running in the streets of Chicago, massacring ops and leaving bodies all over the city, decades before drill music had even been invented. Many people thought that such a brazen murder in an upmarket tourist spot would have been an open and shut case. But shockingly, Duck's murder would go unsolved for over a year. Well, unsolved by the police, because over the course of that year, a number of young men linked to the crime and the gang responsible would run free, bragging about the crime and celebrating Duck's death all over social media and in hit songs. Some songs celebrating Duck's murder would land on the Billboard chart and earn RIAA certifications, while other songs that hinted direct involvement would fly under the radar. Members of the gang allegedly responsible for killing Duck would go live on Instagram, telling viewers that they're smoking on Duck, a common insult to the deceased in modern-day drill music. But less common in this case, one member would even go as far as to flex shoes hinting at his involvement in the crime on Instagram. Those who were allegedly responsible for killing Duck were so confident that they wouldn't be caught that they boasted about the murder for over a year. But why would anyone do this?
Because we are not here to talk about a shooting. We are not here to talk about gang beef, or ops, or who did what to who. We are here to ask a question that nobody in the drill documentary world has been willing to sit with long enough to actually answer. Why does success not save people? Why does the music, the money, the fame, why does none of it create enough distance between a man and the world he came from? Why did Carlton Weekly, with everything he had built, everything he had earned, everything he had survived, why was he still not free? And the deeper question, the one that's about all of us, is it about him specifically, or is it about something bigger? Something that every single person in this room, regardless of where they grew up, regardless of what they've been through, something that all of us are dealing with in our own way? This documentary is called Lessons from FBG. But I want to be clear about something right now, before we go a single second further. This is not a story about FBG Duck. Not really.
Tuka, killed in 2011. This sad Chicago story begins with Tuka, a name known even to those who have never heard his music. The irony is that Tuka was not a rapper in the classical sense. He had no albums, no music videos, no contracts. Yet his name became one of the most recognizable in drill culture. Tuka grew up in the St. Lawrence neighborhood on the south side of Chicago. He was associated with the STL crew, which was later
Dirk went to jail, they took down the Moral. Listen, the Moral stood in Chicago all the time. They knew if they took it down, Dirk gonna spank that ass. You took a picture from the patrol and Dirk gonna spank that ass. Dirk went to jail, they took down the Moral. Listen, the Moral stood in Chicago all the time. They knew if they took it down, Dirk gonna spank that ass.
This is a story about environment, about identity, about the way that the world we grow up in writes a script for our lives before we're old enough to even read. FBG Duck is the case study. The streets of Chicago are the classroom, and the lesson is for all of us. Stay with me, because what I'm about to show you, the real story, the full picture, the parts that the gossip channels won't touch, it's going to change the way you think. Not just about Chicago, not just about drill music, about yourself.
Hey Chris, don't give me no auto-tune for all that. None of that shit. Like, no cap. Just tell that gang shit. Little nigga play gang like talk to that little. I'm finna geek on. First of all, I don't know no strip. I don't know no can't care. And that nigga in that video, he can't be me. Like seriously.
Shay had a baby with FBG Butter.
She got 2.
2 with Butter? Damn.
Yeah, that's her. She got 2 kids and both.
How many kids
Butter
got?
3.
Okay. So can I ask Shay one question? Can you tell us how did Doug feel when he found out you was messing with his homie?
Talking about messing with his homie.
Oh, fool.
He ain't like it.
He ain't like it.
He ain't like it.
But y'all been messing around since y'all was 12. They wasn't homies then.
Who was messing with who at 12?
Hell no, he ain't like that. He's
No, he ain't like it.
Look.
Duck was just bipolar. He was iffy. One minute he was okay.
Right.
Then the next minute he like, nah.
And we got Shay.
About the choices you've made, the environment that shaped you, the identity that you cling to, the pressure you've been carrying so long you've forgotten it's there. This is Lessons from FBG. Part 1. When there are no other words. There's a reason human beings have been making art about pain for as long as human beings have existed. Every culture, every civilization, every era. The cave paintings at Lascaux. Art made in darkness, underground, by firelight, by people whose daily reality was survival in its most literal form. The Greek tragedies. Performances staged for thousands of people, exploring grief and loss and the cruelty of fate in a society that was simultaneously building philosophy and engaging in brutal warfare. The blues, the original American art form of pain, born in the Mississippi Delta from the specific anguish of people whose ancestors had been enslaved, people who took suffering that had no adequate response in language and turned it into sound. Why do humans do that?
My man's back there. You see my man's back there, gang shit. My man don't say fuck Harvey.
We out here smoking Harvey.
Yeah. What?
Game them some videos.
Game. What?
Those ain't 50 Cent right there. Those ain't 50 Cent.
Ooh. Out here bogus and both.
In the video, he would have an actor that actually looked like one of his most hated rivals, FBG Duck, and the video would even depict Von shooting Duck and leaving him dead on the ground. However, this was more than just a fantasy video prodding his rival, because within 6 months of that video that depicted Duck shot dead on the ground being released, it would seem that Von and his closest friends conspired to make that happen in real life, with events unfolding that put all of the surviving shooters behind bars for good, and potentially creating a multi-million-dollar liability for Lil Durk. As everyone following the drill scene likely knows by now, FBG Duck's murder was allegedly part of a long-running beef between 2 gang sets from the south side of Chicago. Duck's set, STLEBT, sometimes referred to as 63rd or Tuckerville, largely identify as gangster disciples. On the other side is O Block, who are primarily black disciples, this being the set where the majority of Duck's convicted killers hail from. A deadly feud between these two factions, who exist just a stone's throw away from each other, stretches back more than a decade, particularly throughout the 2010s, when this feud would claim the lives of many young men in the area, with
Duck.
Hey Chris, don't give me no auto-tune for all me. None of that shit. Like, no cap. Still that gang shit. Little niggas play gang. Talk to that little. I'm finna geek on. Shout out DG Brown. First of all, I don't know no shit. I don't know no bitch from Care. And that nigga in that video, he can't be me. Like shit.
This. Why do we take pain and make it into something? Not run from it, not suppress it. Transform it? The psychologist James Pennebaker spent decades researching what happens when people put their pain into words. His research established that the act of articulating, of finding language for, traumatic or difficult experiences has measurable physiological and psychological benefits. People who write about their trauma show improved immune function. They show reduced cortisol levels, the stress hormone. They show improved emotional processing and reduced symptoms of depression and anxiety. Why? Pennybaker's theory is that unprocessed emotional experience creates a kind of cognitive load. The brain keeps returning to it, trying to make sense of it, because the experience hasn't been organized into a narrative that the mind can file away and move past. When you put the experience into words, when you find the language that captures what happened and what it felt like and what it meant, you give the brain the narrative it's been searching for. The cognitive load decreases. The brain can partially let go. Chicago Drill is, among other things, a massive collective exercise in exactly that process. B-roll, early drill-era footage, Chief Keef, Chance the Rapper performance, archival Chicago footage. I know that's not how it's usually described. The mainstream description of drill music, especially early Chicago drill, the music that Keef and Lay Capone and Lil Herb and the entire generation of the early 2010s created, focuses on the violence in the lyrics, the aggression, the specific call-outs and threats and references to real events. And all of that is real. It's there. It's part of what the music is. But underneath the violence in the lyrics is something that the surface-level critics of drill music almost never acknowledge. Pain. Enormous, unprocessed, unacknowledged pain. The pain of loss, of watching people you love die, of surviving things that shouldn't be survivable, of living in a state of constant threat, of wanting things, safety, opportunity, recognition, love, that the world around you consistently denies. FBG Duck's music. And I want to be precise here, because this isn't just a general claim. FBG Duck's music had a specific quality that separated it from the broader drill landscape. A rawness that felt almost confessional, not in a soft vulnerability is strength way. In a, I am going to tell you exactly what my reality is, and I'm not going to soften it for your comfort way. Songs like I'm from 63rd, with 8.7 million views on his official YouTube channel, are not just rap songs. They are acts of documentation. Acts of testimony. This is where I'm from. This is it. Fade in. Dead bitches. 6 days after that song dropped, FBG Duck was gone. But let's talk about the song. Because 51 million YouTube views on a single track is not nothing. 51 million. That is not a man who was failing. That is not a career that was going nowhere. That is a human being who had, by any reasonable external measure, succeeded. He had a platform. Millions of people were listening. The numbers were real. The trajectory was real. By the summer of 2020, Carlton Weekly was on the ascending slope of something genuinely significant. So here's the question that this chapter is built around. A Reddit comment captured it. He thought he was untouchable since he was in the Gold Coast. Was he wrong? I don't mean factually. We know the facts. I mean philosophically. Was the logic wrong? The logic was, if I can get enough distance from the geography, I can get enough distance from the conflict. If I can make enough money to be in the Gold Coast rather than 63rd Street, if I can put enough physical miles between myself and the blocks where the war is being fought, then the war cannot reach me. It is an entirely human logic. It is the logic that drives people to move away from difficult environments, change schools, change neighborhoods, change cities, change countries. Sometimes that logic works. Sometimes geographic distance is enough. But geographic distance does not create social distance. Being in the Gold Coast does not mean you have left the world that the Gold Coast is separate from. Because the conflict, the specific conflict that FBG Duck was embedded in, existed in social space, not just geographic space. In the era of social media, smartphones, YouTube, Instagram, 24-hour documentation, social space is everywhere. This is the fifth lesson. Success changes what you have. It does not automatically change who you are embedded with or what you are embedded in. The money was real. The streams were real. The audience was real. The YouTube views were real. But the beef was also real. The conflict, with real lives lost, real trauma on both sides encoded in real relationships and obligations of loyalty and retaliation. The conflict did not recognize the Gold Coast as neutral territory. I want to be careful here. This is not victim blaming. The failure to escape the conflict was not Carlton Weekly's individual failing. It was a structural feature of a conflict that had taken on institutional dimensions. When your name is in the conflict, publicly, in music heard by millions, stepping away personally does not remove you from the conflict's logic, because the logic is not personal. It is relational, communal, organizational. And in that logic, what you represent matters as much as what you personally do. In warfare, strategists talk about strategic significance. I am not framing Carlton Weekly's death as military strategy. I am framing it as conflict logic. FBG Duck's public position, his music, his name, his explicit participation in cultural and social dimensions made him strategically significant in ways that his physical location in the Gold Coast could not neutralize. The Gold Coast strategy was not irrational. It was just insufficient. I want to sit with something else that gets overlooked. The music was genuinely evolving. Dead Bitches, 51 million views, shows an artist developing. Production more ambitious, delivery more confident. Reach broader. This was not a man who had peaked. He was building toward something. And that is a specific kind of tragedy. Not just, a man died. A man was in the middle of becoming. The music that would have existed after August 4th, 2020, we don't have it. The albums, the collaborations, the artistic development, all of that future was terminated. When we talk about the cost of this conflict, we talk about the deaths. We should. But the cost also includes the futures. The music that wasn't made. The growth that didn't happen. Duck and Vaughn died the same year they made the most money in their life. The moment of maximum success, coinciding with maximum vulnerability. Why is the peak the most dangerous moment? One answer is practical. Success makes you more visible. One is structural. Success creates obligations. Studios, video shoots, promo. One is psychological. Success can create a sense of safety not calibrated to the actual threat level. He thought he was untouchable since he was in the Gold Coast. Success changes how you feel. It can change your relationship to danger, not always toward caution. Sometimes success, paradoxically, makes people feel less vulnerable. Because success is evidence that things are going well, that you've beaten the odds. And when the world is finally rewarding you, the psychological cost of staying in maximum protective posture rises. This is not stupidity, not arrogance. It is human psychology under enormous pressure. Before we go to the next chapter, the one about choices, I want to be honest about what's uncomfortable here. The narrative of success as escape has enormous appeal, especially in American and hip-hop culture. Sometimes it's true, many escaped, but it is not universally true. And when it fails, the mythology produces a cruel interpretation. If success equals escape, then failure to escape means you chose not to. That interpretation is seductive because it is clean. But it is not the full truth. The full truth is messier. Escape from the conditions that produce this world requires more than individual success. It requires dismantling the social, relational, and identity commitments the environment created. Those don't dissolve because streaming numbers go up. So, let's talk about choices. What choices actually are, and what they're not. Cut to black. This is the chapter where we must be most honest, most precise. Choices are real. Circumstances are real. Their relationship, how circumstances shape and constrain choices without fully determining them, is the heart of the lesson. Think of your life as a card game. You didn't choose the hand you were dealt. Neighborhood, family, economy, historical moment, race, gender, geography. Those were dealt to you. The hand matters enormously. 4 aces is different from 2, 3, 7, 9. Strategies differ. Risks differ. Probabilities differ. But the game is not over because of the hand. Cards can be played well or badly. The hand constrains. It does not determine. Hold this framework. Not, it's all circumstances. Not, it's all choices. Both are simple. Both are wrong. Truth, circumstances shape the range and cost of choices, and choices remain real within that range. Contemplative B-roll. Apply this to FBG Duck and the FBG group. The conflict was inherited. Long chains of deaths, retaliations, and incidents predated many current participants. You don't choose the war you're born into. But once you're in it, what do? Options are not participate or walk away without consequence. They are narrower, costlier. Walking away has social costs, status, respect, community standing, safety costs, vulnerability can increase, relational costs, ruptures with people whose loyalty has been real. These are documented realities, not rationalizations. So when we say he could have made different choices, true in theory, we must also ask, what would those choices have cost, and who bears the cost? The common outside answer, leave Chicago, start fresh. Sometimes that works, but be honest about the requirements. Leave every relationship. Build anew with limited resources. Stay safe while visible. Manage ongoing psychological weight, all while identity remains public and trackable. That is not a simple choice. It is one of the hardest things a human being can be asked to do. This documentary holds two truths simultaneously. Truth 1, the circumstances were genuinely, structurally difficult. The costs of disengagement were real. Truth 2, choices were made by many participants across the conflict, and responsibility for them is real. The lesson lives between these truths. The earlier you intervene in the chain of circumstances, the more real your choices become. Let it land. At the beginning, ranges are wide. Costs are lower. As time passes, conflicts deepen, identities solidify, obligations multiply. The range narrows and costs rise. The 12-year-old on 63rd has more choices than the 19-year-old shaped by the conflict. The 19-year-old more than the 25-year-old publicly committed by music. And so on. This is not fatalism. People change at any age. Exits happen, but it gets harder. Costs get higher. Resources become critical. FBG Duck needed those resources, not as someone beyond help, but as someone navigating complexity with limited support who needed more. What did the music industry provide? The platforms? The audience? Was it support or consumption? Then the community. Structurally abandoned, self-built institutions under the same pressures. What could it offer? Honestly, not much. Not because people don't care, but because resources are scarce. This story is a lens. It's larger and closer to home than one geography. Every one of us has inherited circumstances. Every one of us has identities built in response to environments. Obligations and momentum make change costly. The question isn't, what should FBG Duck have done? The question is, what can I do? What circumstance have I called just how it is? What identity no longer fits? What choices exist now, and what would it take to make them? Discomfort is where growth lives. Viktor Frankl wrote, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom." For Carlton Weekly, that space was constrained, not eliminated. The lesson for us: make that space as large as possible. Knowledge, relationships, support systems, self-awareness that widen the space between stimulus and response. The wider that space, the more real your choices become. FBG. Duck didn't have enough space, not from weakness, but because circumstances closed it down. The supports that could have held it open weren't there. That is the tragedy. Not simple, not clean, but real. Long pause. Music fades. Let's sit with that for a moment. Before the final chapter, fade out. We started with a date, August 4th, 2020. A man named Carlton Weekly, FBG Duck, 26 years old, the Gold Coast, the gap between where he came from and where he was standing. We built from there, the environment, structural conditions that produced his world, the identity, the way belonging is built. And the way belonging can become a cage. The music. Pain turned into expression. The expression turned into a product. The product turned into a trap. The success. The illusion of distance. The geography of escape that wasn't geography at all. The choices. Real within their constraints. constrained by circumstances that were also real. And now we're here, at Reflection, at the place where we ask what this story actually means for the lives we are living right now. Part 2 will take this further, from understanding to action, from lens to practice, from observation to the first moves that widen the space between stimulus and response in our own lives. Hold the lessons, hold the complexity, hold the humanity, because every day, in ways big and small, we are all choosing who we become, within the hands we were dealt, and building the structures that make those choices more possible for the people who come after us. We owe them more space. We owe ourselves more space. Part 2 begins soon.